talk of the day. It is by Dr. Shankar Rajaraman ji. He is an associate professor at Center for Ancient History and Culture, Jain University, Bangalore. Let me give a brief introduction of Dr. Shankar Rajaraman ji. Shankar Rajaraman is a recipient of prestigious Vaada and Vyas Samman 2019 from the President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind, for his contribution to Sanskrit language and literature. He has also been conferred with the Professor M. Hiriyanna Sanskrit Works Award for the Best Sanskrit Poet of the Year 2013, the Bannanjay Award 2017, and the Vagdevi Puraskara 2021 by the Akhila Bharatiya Sahitya Parishad. He has several publications to his credit, including the English translations of two Ayurvedic texts, Shema Kutuhala and Bhojana Kutuhala on dietetics, a Sanskrit messenger poem, Kokila Sandesha, a Sanskrit epic, Madhura Vijaya, a Kannada translation of two chapters, Anna Bhoga and Padabhyaga Bhoga, from the encyclopedic work Manasollasa, and a Sanskrit translation of the Kannada Vachanas composed by Basaveshwara. Some of his original Sanskrit poems that have been published include Devi Dana Vijayam, Devi Dana Viyam, Chitra Naishadham. It is a Chitra Kavita work, Chitra Naishadham. Bharavi Tarastavaha, and Nipuna. I think Dr. Shankar Rajaraman will mention the name of the book. It is Roman script is not helping me to understand. Shankar is currently an associate professor at the Center for Ancient History and Culture, Jain University, Bangalore. Over to you, Dr. Shankar Rajaraman.
Thank you, sir. Hope I am audible.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, thank you.
You are.
Jnananandamayam devam nirmala sphatikākratim ādhāram sarva vidyanam hayagrivam upasmahi. Thank you for that introduction, Professor Pathuriji. Those works which you are mentioning include Bharavatārastava, work in 50 verses in praise of Shiva, Nipuna Prabhunakam, work in the Bhana genre of Sanskrit drama, and Chitra Naishadam and Devi Danavi. These were the four works that I have composed, which you were alluding to. My talk today shall be on a much more lighter topic. Poets are interested in lighter topics. Nyayikas are interested in Mukti. We Kavyas are interested in Vakrokti. So the topic is Samvaada in the Vakrokti genre of poetry, with special reference to Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī and Vakroktipañcāśikā. I shall initially be speaking about what is Vakrokti itself. That will take a few slides. Then how Samvaada is an integral part of Vakrokti. And then last few slides on Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī and Vakroktipañcāśikā, which are two works in the Vakrokti genre of poetry. I have shared the slide with Mr. Srinivas Vadde. I request him to actually share the screen. Thank you, Srinivas ji. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So, what is Vakrokti? So, a few slides on what Vakrokti itself. In fact, many slides on Vakrokti itself, because I thought not many people might be well versed with what Vakrokti itself is. The word Vakrokti has two connotations. It's the same word is used in two connotations within Sanskrit poetics. There is a broad sense in which the word is used, and there is a narrow sense. As a broad sense, it refers to a particular Kavya Tattva itself, a principal element of poetry, an essential element of poetry. And in this broad sense, it is a defining feature of Kavya itself. And it is akin to other such Kavya Tattvas like Rasa or Dhvani, very integral part of poetry itself, something which defines poetry itself. And it is this Vakrokti which differentiates poetry from everyday utterances. And in this broad sense, the word Vakrokti has been dealt with by the Kashmirian Alankarika poetician Kuntaka in his work Vakrokti Jivita, seminal work Vakrokti Jivita. However, in this particular talk, I will not deal with this broad sense of the word Vakrokti. I will deal mostly with the narrow sense in which the word has been used. The same word has been used within Alankara Shastra. And what is this narrow sense? The broad sense actually refers to something called as oblique or crooked speech, and this crooked speech differentiates poetry from everyday speech. Now, in the narrow sense, the word Vakrokti has been refers to a particular figure of sound, Shabda Alankara, a very narrow sense. And mostly this Shabda Alankara is based on Pan, Shlesha. And in this sense, it has been first used by the Alankarika Rudrata in his work, Kavya Alankara. And as you can see, in this narrow sense, unlike in the broad sense, it does not pervade the entire gamut of poetry. Vakrokti is not an essential feature of poetry, but Vakrokti is just one of the figures of sound that poets employ in their poems. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, Vakrokti has been placed under another, the narrow concept of Vakrokti has been placed under a broader concept of something called as Vako Vakya, which could be roughly translated as conversation. And Bhoja, especially Vako Vakya, actually incidentally also refers to Nyaaya Shastra itself. But here, Bhoja uses the word in a general sense of conversation between two or more speakers. And in this sense, he has used it in his Saraswati Kantabharana. He defines it as follows: Ukti pratyukti madvakyam vako vakyam vidurbudhaha dvayoho vaktroho. Among two speakers, tadichanti bahunamapi, or many speakers, but they should be present together. They should be close together, sangame, when they are meeting together. So this Vako Vakya happens between two closely present two speakers who are present near each other. And Bhoja classifies this Vako Vakya into several subtypes, and one of those subtypes is Vakrokti. So Vako Vakya has been classified into these types: Rujukti, Vakrokti, Vayyatyokti, Gudha, Prashnottariki, Chitrokti. And under each of these categories, there are subcategories, which I will not go into. But with respect to Vakrokti, Bhoja divides it into two types: Nirvyudha Vakrokti and Anirvyudha Vakrokti. Though there are a lot of technical terms here, you need not get afraid because I'm using so many technical terms. I will be explaining them with examples in the slides that will be coming. So can you please go to the next slide? So let us first look into the definitions of Vakrokti itself in its narrow sense. As I told you, Rudrata is the first person who defines Vakrokti as an Alankara, as a figure of speech, as a figure of sound, especially Shabda Alankara. And he divides it into two types: Shlesha Vakrokti and Kaku Vakrokti. And how does he define Vakrokti? Vaktra tad anyatha uttam yachaste chanyatha tad uttaradah vachanam yatpada bhangaihi Nyayasa Shlesha Vakrokti. So he defines first Shlesha Vakrokti and then defines Kaku Vakrokti. He does not provide a general definition of Vakrokti as it is, but he provides a definition of its categories: Shlesha Vakrokti and Kaku Vakrokti. And what is Shlesha Vakrokti? Where among two speakers engaged in a conversation, one of them tells something to which the other answers in an unexpected, different way by splitting the words in the first speaker's utterance. And how does he split it? In such a way that that first speaker did not intend, in a way that was not intended by that first speaker. In short, Shlesha Vakrokti is a Vakrokti that is based on Pan. And this will be clear when I present certain examples. And there is also another type of Vakrokti called as Kaku Vakrokti, where due to intonation in speech, one speaker understands what was said by the other speaker, in a different sense, different to what that first speaker meant. In short, this is Vakrokti that is based on intonation. So we have Vakrokti based on pun and Vakrokti based on intonation. So shall we go to the next slide? There are also a few more definitions, but these definitions more or less mirror the definition of Rudrata and also the classification which he provides within those definitions itself. So Mammata, the Kashmirian, in his Kavya Prakasha, defines again similar to Rudrata, Yaduktam Anyatha Vakyam Anyathanyena Yodyate, Shleshena Kakwa. So Shlesha Vakrokti and Kaku Vakrokti. Shleshena Kakwa Vagneya, Sa Vakrokti Tata Dvida. So there are two types of Vakrokti. And again, Appaya Dikshita, who many of us might have heard, at least his name, in his Kuvalayananda, he also defines Vakrokti in a similar fashion. Vakrokti Shlesha Kakubhyam Aparartha Prakalpanam. But in a very succinct manner, he within a half of Anushtuk, he defines Vakrokti as Shlesha Kakubhyam Aparartha Prakalpanam. Again, he provides the two classification into Shlesha Vakrokti and Kaku Vakrokti. But because Bhoja has also classified it in different way, we get actually a broader classification of Vakrokti into several categories, which we shall be looking into in the next slide. Can we go to the next slide? So this is a broader classification of Vakrokti. And again, you did not get alarmed by this classification. I shall be providing examples for each of them. So under Vakrokti, you have Shlesha Vakrokti, Kaku Vakrokti, Nirvyudha Vakrokti, and Anirvyudha Vakrokti. Shlesha Vakrokti is Vakrokti that is based on pun. Kaku Vakrokti is a Vakrokti that is based on intonation. Nirvyudha Vakrokti is a sustained Vakrokti, which means within a verse, the speakers engage in Vakrokti either through Shlesha or through Kaku, but mostly through Shlesha. Throughout the verse, there is Vakrokti throughout the verse between the speakers. But in Anirvyudha Vakrokti, the speakers don't engage in Vakrokti. They engage in conversation, but the conversation is not marked by Vakrokti throughout the verse. They engage in Vakrokti for some time in the beginning of the verse, but then that Vakrokti is given up in the later part. Under Shlesha Vakrokti, we have two types, Artha Shlesha Mula, meaning based, and Shabda Shlesha Mula, sound based or word based. And under Shabda Shlesha Mula, we have Abhanga Shabda Shlesha Mula, Sabhanga Shlesha Mula, Avikrita Shlesha Mula, and Vikrita Shlesha Mula. And we shall be looking into examples further. But before that, I would like to actually present an example from English itself to understand what Vakrokti itself is. So can we go to the next slide? So in this particular example, we have Vakrokti of both types, Shlesha Vakrokti and Kaku Vakrokti. This is a example of a conversation between two people who are called what and not. So the first person says, hello, are you there? Yes, who are you, please? I am what? What's your name? What is what your name? It means both. So through Kaku, what's your name means what is your name? But it also means is what your name? So the other answers, what's my name? The other actually takes the first person's question as what is your name, in a simple sense of what is your name, and he says what's my name. So the next one says, yes, what's your name? My name is John Watt. John what? Yes. Are you Jones? No, I am not. Will you tell me your name then? Will not. Why not? My name is not. Not what? Not what? Not what? And so, as you can look into this funny conversation, there is this has a mixture of both pun as well as intonation. Intonation itself giving rise to two different meanings. So I thought this English example might clarify the concept of Vakrokti. So can we go to the next slide? So now we'll go to the Sanskrit examples for different types of Vakrokti. So the first one is Shlesha Vakrokti, and under that we have Artha Shlesha Mula. And what is this Artha Shlesha Mula? The speaker's sentence as a whole is capable of producing two different meanings. So the sentence as a whole is what is important here. So the two meanings are not produced because a single word within those sentences has multiple meanings, or it is not produced because of multiple meanings that result from splitting those words in more than one way. This happens in the other types, but here the sentence as a whole produces two different meanings. And we have this example from Kolayananda itself, provided by Appai Dikshita for Arthashlesha Mula. So this is a conversation between Lakshmi and Parvati, and each wants to outdo the other in the conversation and make fun of the other. That is the purpose. Lakshmi wants to make fun of Parvati by deriding her husband, and Parvati wants to make fun of Lakshmi by deriding her husband Vishnu. So the conversation starts like this. Bhiksharti Sakvayata Sutanu. This is asked by Lakshmi. She asks, "Dear, where has he gone for begging?" And when Lakshmi says he here means your husband. But Parvati regards this word he as referring to her Lakshmi's husband, and answers not on behalf of her husband Shiva, but on behalf of Vishnu. So when Lakshmi asks, where has he gone for begging? Parvati answers back, your husband, that is Vishnu, has gone to Bali's yajna. As you know, in the Vamana Avatara, Bali went asking for 3 steps from Bali. Vamana went asking for 3 steps from Bali. Then Lakshmi asks again, Bali Makhe is the answer provided by Parvati. Then Lakshmi asks, Tandavam Kwadya Bhadre. Lakshmi asks Parvati, where is he going to dance today? Which means, where is your husband Shiva going to dance? As we know, Shiva is called Mahanata, and Shiva likes to dance. But Parvati takes it in the sense of Vishnu, and she answers, Manye Vrindavanante. Maybe he will dance in Vrindavana. And thus, the conversation continues. Kvanusam Mrigashishur Naiva Jane Varaham Bale Kachinna Drishto Jarata Vrishapati. So Jarata Vrishapati is where has the old bull gone? And old bull in the sense in which Lakshmi takes it is Nandi. Where is Nandi? And she uses the word old basically to deride Shiva, saying that Shiva is not the master even of a young bull, but of an old bull. And Lakshmi answers back saying, Parvati answers back saying, the cowherd should know. The cowherd here refers to Krishna. So in this way, both the speakers, that is Lakshmi and Parvati, try to outdo other in deriding their husbands. So the verse ends by saying, Leela Sallapa Yitham. So it is a Leela Sallapa. This is done for the sake of parihasa, for the sake of merriment. Both want to have a hearty laughter by doing this. Jalanidhi Himavat Kanyayo of Lakshmi and Parvati, Trayatam Naha, may protect us all. So can we go to the next slide, please? So now we have Shlesha Vakrokti Shabda Shakti Mula Abhanga. Now what is Abhanga? It is word based. Unlike the previous category, which was sentence based, the meaning of a sentence as a whole was important. Here, this Vakrokti is based on words and whole words without splitting. That is what is important, because Sabhanga, which is the next type, depends on splitting. And whole words here have 2 different meanings. This is a very famous example, and most of you might have heard of this example, and that's why I took this example. Kastvam Shuli Mrigaya Bhishajam Neelakanta Priyeham Kekam Ekam Vada Pashupatir Naiva Drishye Vishane Mugdhestanu Sacharati Katham Jivitesha Shivayaha Gacchatavyam Iti Hatavacha Patuvas Chandra Chudaha. So this is again a conversation between Parvati and Shiva. Parvati asks, who are you? Shiva has come at Parvati's doorstep, and probably Shiva has not been present throughout the whole night. He has gone out somewhere, and Parvati suspects he might have spent time with somebody else, and that is why she is angry with him, and she doesn't want to open the door, and Shiva is standing outside at her doorstep and wanting to get in. So Parvati asks, who are you? So Shiva answers, I am Shuli. Shuli is one of the names of Shiva, and it means one who holds the Shula, trident. But the word Shuli also means one who suffers from colicky pain. Shula in Sanskrit not only means trident, but it is also abdominal pain, very intense pain, colicky pain. So if you are a shuli, that is a person suffering from colicky pain, then it is better you go and see a physician. What do you have to do with me? Is what Parvati answers. Mrigaya Bheshajam, then see a physician. Why have you come to my doorstep? Then Shiva answers, I am Neelakantha. So let me not be shuli, but you at least understand who Neelakantha is. And who is Neelakantha? I am the blue-throated one. But the word Neelakantha in Sanskrit also means a peacock. And so Parvati apparently understands it in the other sense. She understands it actually in the other sense only to make fun of Shiva and through that fun express her anger. And Parvati answers, then make a keka sound. Keka is a sound made by a peacock. Keka is a Sanskrit word for the sound that is made by a peacock. So she asks Shiva to make a keka sound because he is Neelakantha. Then Shiva answers back. He says, okay, let me not be Shuli or Neelakantha. I am Pashupati and I am sure you know who Pashupati is. And Pashupati means the Lord of beings. But it also means a bull. So Parvati takes it in that sense. And she answers back, Naiva Drishye Vishane. Oh, if you are a bull, why is it that I don't see your horns? Then Shiva answers back, neither am I Shuli, nor am I Neelakantha, nor am I Pashupati. But you understand who Sthanu is. I am Sthanu. Sthanu means the unshakable one, the firm one. But it also means a pillar. So Parvati takes it in the other sense and then asks Shiva, then how is it that you are moving about? Pillars don't move about. Then Shiva answers, I am Shiva's beloved. Now he uses the word Shiva itself, thinking that if I use the word Shiva, your beloved, at least then Parvati will understand who I am. So he tells, I am Shivayaha Jiviteshaha. I am the sweetheart of Shiva. And Shiva means, Shiva in Strilinga, it means Parvati. I am Parvati's sweetheart. But Shiva also means a vixen, a female jackal, a female fox. So the word Shivayaha Jivitesha not only means I am Shiva, the husband of Shiva, but it also means I am a fox. So then Parvati answers back saying, then go to the forest. What do you have to do? Coming to my doorstep, you being a fox should retire to the forest. So in this way, this is how the conversation between Shiva and Parvati is carried on forwards through Abhanga Shlesha, where each word, the word Shuli, Neelakantha, Pashupati, etc., without any splitting, each word has two different meanings. So can we go to the next slide? So let us come to Shlesha Vakrokti, which is Sabhanga, where again it is word based, but words give more than one meaning when split differently. And this example is from Kuvalayananda. In Kuvalayananda, usually he takes examples from Chandraloka, and the first line has the Lakshana of the Alankara, and the second line of the Anushtup has an example. The example given there after describing what Vakrokti is this example. Munchamanam dinam praptam nehanandi harantike. It's a very succinctly worded example, as the example is almost like a sutra here. And within this one small sentence, small line of an Anushtup, there is a dialogue that is built between Shiva and Parvati. And Shiva and Parvati have quarreled the whole night. And this is a Pranaya Kalaha for some or the other reason, probably because of Ganga or something else. And Shiva tells Parvati to abandon her anger because it is already daybreak. Muncha manam, give up your love anger, my dear. Dinam praptam, it is daybreak now. It is going to, the night is going to end now. And you cannot be continuing to have anger at me. But to that, Parvati answers in an apparently irrelevant way. And she says, so for what Shiva tells, abandon your love anger, it's already daybreak now. Parvati answers like this, oh Hara, Antike Nandi Neha, Nandi is not near me. Why are you asking me to let go of Nandi? Nandi is not near me. And why is it that she answers in such a irrelevant way? So when Shiva asks her, abandon your love, anger, Parvati should actually answer, okay, I will abandon my love, anger. But she is answering in some irrelevant way. She tells, Nandi is not near me. Why? Because she understands the same words spoken by Shiva, Muncha Manandinam Praptam, in a different way. She splits those words in a different way. Instead of taking it as Muncha Manam Dinam Praptam, she takes it as Muncha Ma Nandinam Praptam. Do not let go of Nandi who is near you. And therefore, she answers it in this way. And she, in fact, has continued anger at Shiva. And that is why she pretends not to understand what Shiva is telling and answers it in a different way. It is not that Parvati is foolish enough not to understand what Shiva is telling, but she wants to continue her anger at Shiva. And that is why she understands it in a different way and answers it accordingly. So can we go into the next slide, please? Yeah. So now we have the Avikrita type of Shabda Shakti Moola Shlesha Vakrokti. And this actually has to be understood in comparison with the Vikrita type. But I will just give a small introduction here. When we go to Vikrita type, we will be understanding what Avikrita is. Here, the word is not modified by elision or addition of words, addition of letters, sorry. To a word, a letter can be added or a letter can be removed from a word to give a different meaning. But that doesn't occur here as it occurs in the next type, which is the Vikrita type. So the example given here, again, this example is from Kuvalayananda. Aho kena idrishi buddhir darunatava nirmita. And this sentence is spoken by one speaker. The other speaker answers, Triguna shuyate buddhir natu darumayi kvachit. So speaker one tells, who created this cruel mind of yours? Daruna. Daruna strilinga. Daruna buddhihi. Your cruel mind. And the word daruna is important here because it is a visheshana. It is an adjective for the word buddhi. And in Sanskrit, the visheshana follows the visheshya in the gender. So buddhi is strilinga and therefore the word daruna is also in strilinga. And the first speaker asks, who created this cruel mind of yours? But the second, the person who responds to him or responds to her, takes the word daruna in a different sense. He takes it not as prathama vibhakti ekavachana of the word daruna, darune, darunaha, but he or she takes it in a tritiya vibhakti sense. Daru, daruni, daruni, daru, daruni, daruni, daruna. So the same word used in two different vibhaktis, prathama vibhakti as well as in tritiya vibhakti. And daruna in tritiya vibhakti means out of wood, with wood. So the second speaker understands it in that sense and answers, I have heard of mind being a product of trigunas, sattva, rajasa and tamas, buddhi being a product of the trigunas. Never have I heard of buddhi being a product of wood, daruna, in tritiya vibhakti, made of wood. Daruna, darumayi is made of wood. So here there is no change made to the word daruna by adding or subtracting any letter to it as it occurs, as it is done in the next subtype. And when I go into that subtype, you will be understanding why this is Avikrita and that is Vikrita. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, this is the example of Vikrita Shabda Shakti Moola Shlesha Vakrokti. Here, words in the conversation are altered by adding or subtracting or sometimes substituting letters. And how do we know what should be added, what letters should be added, or what letters should be subtracted, or what letters should be substituted? For that, there is a mention that is overtly made within the verse itself, or sometimes covertly mentioned. In fact, the covertly mentioned one is much more challenging. Overtly, anybody can say, add this letter or subtract this letter. But covert mention of what has to be added or what has to be substituted or what has to be subtracted, composing such a verse is very difficult. And Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī, about which 2 slides I have later, is an example of such a type of Vikrita Shabda Shakti Mool Shlesha Vakrokti. But this example given in Kuvalayananda is of Vikrita Shabda Shakti Mool Shlesha Vakrokti is what I am going to tell now. The verse is like this. Bhavitri Ramboru Tridasha Vadana Glaniraduna Sate Ramastatha Na Yudhi Purato Lakshmana Sakaha Yam Yasyat Yuchair Vipada Madhuna Vanar Chamuhu Lagishtedam shashtakshara paravilopat patapunah. Here, the fourth line, there is a overt mention that the seventh letter of each line has to be deleted to get a different sense. And what is the entire verse? What is the context for the entire verse? The context is a dialogue between Ravana and Sita. This is not part of Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī. This is a verse which was composed even earlier than that. But the Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī, which is a recent work, was inspired by this one verse from Kuvalayananda. And here you have this dialogue between Ravana and Sita. Ravana tells, Rambhoru Tridasha Vadana Glani Raduna Bhavitri. Today, the faces of the gods will turn pale. Sate Rama, your Rama, Stathana Yudhi Purato Lakshmana Saka. Your Rama, along with Lakshmana, will not stand before me in war. That is, he will be defeated. And Uchchaihi Vipada Madhuna Vanarachamuhu Yasyati. The army of monkeys will see total ruin. Uchchaihi Vipadam, total ruin. And this is what Ravana tells. But Sita, in response to Ravana, she answers back telling, delete the seventh letter of each of the sentences that you said and read it once again. That is my reply to what you want to hear. So what happens when you delete the seventh letter of each line? Bhavitri Ramboru, instead of Tridasha Vadana, you delete 3 and you have Dashavadana Glani Raduna. Sate Ramastata na you have to delete and you get Sate Ramastata Yudhi Purato Lakshmana Sakaha. Today, Dashavadana's Glani will happen. The face of Ravana will turn pale and Rama and Lakshmana will stand valiantly in front of me. And Uchchaihi Padamadhuna Vanarachamuhu Yasyati. Not Vipadam. V has to be deleted. So you have Uchchaihi Padamadhuna Vanarachamuhu Yasyati. Today, the Vanarachamu, that is the army of the Vanaras, will gain great victory. Lagishtedam shashtakshara paravilopat patapunah. With this particular suggestion of Sita, you have an entirely new set of sentences that actually go against Ravana himself and are actually praising Rama, his foe of Ravana. Instead of being a praise of Ravana, the entire poem turns into a praise of Rama himself. There is an overt mention here of what has to be deleted. But there is also another type where there is covert mention, and that is what, as I was telling, is employed in the text Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī. Can we go into the next slide, please? So then we have the Kaku Vakrokti, and Kaku Vakrokti, as I told, is based on intonation. We don't have too many examples of this, but this one example might suffice to understand it a bit. Asamalochya, there's a typo there. Asamalochya kopaste nochitoyam itirita naivochitoyam ititam tadayamasa malaya. So this is a conversation between a lover and his beloved, and the lover says, your thoughtless anger at me is not proper. But nochitoyam means, by intonation, the same thing means, isn't your anger not proper? So it means both. Your anger is not proper, and by intonation, as you saw in that earlier English example, by intonation, it also means, isn't your anger proper? And his beloved takes it in that sense, and therefore she says, yes, it is proper. Isn't it not proper? And then she hits him with a garland. So through intonation, two different meanings are produced. The lover wants to convey the idea that her anger is not proper, but through intonation, the beloved understands it in the sense that your anger is proper. So can we go to the next sentence? Next slide, please. So then you have Bhoja's example of Nirvyudha and Anirvyudha Vakrokti. Nirvyudha Vakrokti is one where the Vakrokti is carried forwards throughout the entire verse. That is, the actors within the verse, the people who converse in the verse, carry Vakrokti throughout the verse. They speak in Vakrokti throughout the verse. While in Anirvyudha, the Vakrokti is abandoned in between. There is no Vakrokti throughout the verse. So the verse here, again, so our poets are often found of dialogues between Shiva and Parvati, and for Vakrokti, it is usually the example of Shiva and Parvati that is employed. And here we have another verse of a dialogue between Shiva and Parvati. And what is the verse? Kim Gauri Mam Prati Rusha. So this is what is said by Shiva. Nanu Gauraham Kim Kupyami Kam Prati. And this entire thing is spoken by Parvati. Mayi iti anumanatoham janami. That is what Shiva says. Then to that Parvati replies, Satyam anumanatayeva tvam. So you see that there is Vakrokti almost till the end of the verse. And therefore this is Nirvyuda Vakrokti. And each of these sentences spoken by those speakers can be understood in two different ways. Shiva tells, Kim Gauri Mam Prati Rusha. Why are you angry at me, Gauri? But the word Kim Gauri Mam Prati Rusha can also be split as Kim Gauhu Imam Prati Rusha. And then it means you are a cow. Almost like Shiva is making fun of Parvati, saying that she is a cow. You are a cow and you are angry at her. And Parvati takes it in that sense. She knows what Shiva is telling, but she wants to continue her conversation with Shiva and show that she is still angry with him. So Parvati answers back, am I a cow? And who am I angry at? Because Shiva told that you are angry at her. To that, Shiva replies back, Mayi, you are angry at me. And how do I know that? Anumanatoham janami. And I know that through guesswork. Anumanataha. So, but Parvati takes it in a different sense. Anumanataha can be split in two different ways. Anumana plus tasil. Through Anumana. But it can also be split in another way. An-uma nataha. An-uma nataha means one who does not bow down before Uma. So Parvati answers back saying, you are indeed the one who, even after committing a mistake, Shiva has committed some mistake because of which the two are quarreling. And in Sanskrit poetry, you often find that when husbands and wives quarrel, it is ultimately the responsibility of the husband to pacify the wife. And pacification usually is, the height of pacification is to fall at the feet of the wife. And Parvati expects that Shiva should fall at her feet, and he is still not fallen at her feet. So the word anumanataha means you have not fallen at my feet. So yes, you are indeed, as you said, you are anumanataha, you are indeed anumanataha because you have not fallen at my feet. And by that she is indicating that at least now fall at my feet. So coming to the next slide, can we go to the next slide please? So this is an example of Anirvyuda Vakrokti, where the Vakrokti is not sustained till the end of the verse. Somewhere it is given up in between. And this is an example again from Saraswati Kanthabharana of Bhoja. And again, example of this dialogue between Shiva and Parvati. Parvati asks, Keyam Murdhini Andhakare. Hey Andhakari. Andhakari means the foe of Andhaka. Keyam Murdhini. Who is this who is this sitting on the top of your head? She is referring basically to Ganga. But she doesn't want to take the name of Ganga. It has to come from the mouth of Shiva himself. So she is just asking, who is this lady? As if she doesn't know who she is. She asks him, who is this on your head, O Andhakari? But Andhakare is a word which can be taken in two different senses because of Sanskrit grammar. Andhakarihi shabda is there. Andhakarihi, Andhakari, Andhakarayah. Andhakarim, Andhakari, Andhakarin, like that. And the Sambodhana of Andhakarihi is Andhakare. But at the same time, there is also another word, Andhakaraha. Pullinga Rama Shabda, like Rama Shabda, of which the Saptami Vakti is Rame. So Andhakaraha, the Saptami Vakti would be Andhakare. So it is Akaranta as well as Ikaranta. So Shiva takes it as Akaranta. Andhakare means in darkness. Parvati asks, who is this on your head, O Andhakari? But Shiva focuses on the word Andhakare. That is, and he takes it meaning not as referring to himself, Andhakari, but as referring to darkness. And so he answers back, what is the occasion for darkness here? Why? Because Kanta Indu Yukte. Kanta means beautiful. Indu, moon. Moon, beautiful moon. The lovely moon is present on my head. I am wearing the lovely moon as a crest jewel. So when there is the lovely moon on my head, where is this occasion for darkness on my head? But the word Kantendu Yukte also means Kanta Indu Yukte. That is, on my head I have a Kanta. I have a beloved also, which means I have Ganga also on my head. I also have Indu. I also have the moon. So Parvati was actually waiting for Shiva to admit that there is a woman on her head. So when Shiva said Kanten Yukte, there is lovely moon on my head, she took it in a different sense. Kanta plus Indu Yukte. There is a beautiful lady and there is also a moon. And when Shiva admitted that there is a lady sitting on his head in the form of Ganga, Parvati was very satisfied because she wanted this to come out of the horse's mouth itself. And then she gave up her Vakrokti. And there is in the later part of the verse, there is no Vakrokti. Vakrokti is there only in the initial part. So because Vakrokti is given up after 2 lines or after 1.5 lines of the verse, this is an example for Anirvyudha Vakrokti. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, Samvaada actually is an integral part of Vakrokti itself. In several commentaries of Kavya Prakasha, when Mamata is described, Mamata has the Lakshana of Vakrokti Alankara, the commentators mention that Vaktrishrotri Nirvahyoyam Alankara. In this Alankara, in this figure of speech, there should always be two people. Without 2 people, because this has to be differentiated from another figure of speech called as Apannuti. Here, and to differentiate that, it is necessary that there must be 2 speakers in Vakrokti Alankara. So that by definition itself, Vaktrishrotri Nirvahyaha Ayam Alankara. There must be a speaker and a listener in this particular Alankara. Now, how does this Samvada, this poetic Samvada, differ from other types of Samvadas? The Samvada in Vakrokti is basically aimed at creating chamatkara in the reader, and that chamatkara has to be mostly based on verbal play only. And it is not a bland conversation as could happen in a shaastric conversation. There might not be too much of alankara or rasa there, but tattvajnana is what is important there. So it is likely to become bland. But in Vakrokti Alankara, Samvada of Vakrokti Alankara, the conversation cannot be bland. But the conversation also does not rise to the level of rasa. It is at the level of Alankara only. Nor is the conversation here aimed primarily at aesthetic communication of certain mental states of the speakers and thereby creating rasa. Though mental states of speakers can be suggested, but the intention is not to suggest those mental states, but the greater beauty is in the verbal play itself, not in the suggestion of certain mental states. Suggestion does happen. For example, in those verses where Shiva and Parvati are conversing with one another, there is the suggestion of mana, anger in Parvati. Anger coupled with love. Similarly, in those verses between Ravana and Sita, there is a suggestion of anger of Sita at Ravana. And at the same time, there is also a suggestion of love of Sita for Rama. That is why when the entire verse gets changed, it is in the form of praise of Rama. In that sense, there is love for Rama. But at the same time, because it goes against Ravana, and because Sita is pratikula to Ravana, and though Ravana wants to become anukula to Sita, you have krodha of Sita towards Ravana. So certain mental states are indeed suggested. Like in the Lakshmi Parvati verse, what is suggested is hasa. So you have the suggestion of these various mental states, but it doesn't rise to the level of rasa. But you could say that this is Guni Bhuta Vyangya, not Rasadhvani, but Guni Bhuta Vyangya, where the verbal play is what is more important than the suggestion of a particular mental state of those actors who are involved in the conversation. Can we go to the next slide? So last few slides, 4 slides in fact, 2 slides on Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī and 2 slides on Vakroktipañcāśikā. Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī is a recent work and it has a total of 100 verses composed sometime in the 19th and 20th centuries. Of those total of 100 verses, Rama Shastri from Mysore composed 50 of them, and his student Sītārāma Shastri completed the Guru's 50 verses by adding his own 50 more verses. And both of them, luckily and for our fortune, have written commentaries for their verses. And both hail from Mysore. The part 1 of this text was published in 1899. That is the Guru's composition, and the Shishya's composition was published in 1999. Both of them are available on archive. The entire work is written as a conversation between Sita and Ravana, and a context is built for this. And the context is that these verses were heard by Hanuman in the Ashokavana when he was hiding, and later when he reports to Rama about how Sita is held captive in Ashokavana and captive in Lanka, etc. At that time, he also mentions these verses to Rama. These are not part of, obviously not part of Valmiki's Ramayana, but a context has been built by the poet himself for these verses. How are these verses constructed? First 3 lines of every verse here are spoken by Ravana, and most of these verses are in the 17-syllable Shikharini Vritta. Some of them are also in the Shardula Vikridita, the 19-syllable Shardula Vikridita meter. First 3 lines are spoken by Ravana, and they are in the form of praising himself. Obviously, Ravana praises himself and derides Rama. Sita covertly suggests, so here you have to notice that it is a covert suggestion, covertly suggests a slight modification in the last line that involves one of these 3. And what are those? Either there could be an omission of a letter in the first 3 lines, which is called Chavita-akshara, substitution of one letter with another, which is called Pratidatta-akshara, or adding a new letter, which is Adhidatta-akshara. And when Sita's covert suggestions are applied to Ravana's words, the meaning of his sayings completely change, and they turn into derision of Ravana as well as praise of Rama, the complete opposite. So can we go to the next slide? And as the poet himself says, and as we ourselves can make out, this is a very difficult type of Vakrokti, because, and Vakrokti actually is a type of Chitrakavya, and Chitrakavya is poetry that is intended to create wonder through extra constraints. And you know the extra constraints that are employed here, as I was telling in the previous slide, where the poet has to go out of his way to see to it that there is a covert suggestion in the 4th line, and when that covert suggestion mentions a particular word which has to be added, subtracted, or substituted, those have to change the meaning in the first 3. These are all extra constraints, and when such extra constraints are there in Chitrakavya, it is very difficult for Arthapushti also to happen. The meaning might not be too great, but the ingenuity of this poet of Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī is that there is Arthapushti as well as Shabda Chitra. In spite of this Chitrakavya element being there, there is also Arthapushti. So he says, Arthapushti avinabhuta Shabda Chitra Atidurghata. Atidurghata is very difficult type of Vakrokti. And Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī iti grathyate kriti. I have composed this kriti called as Sītārāvaṇasaṃvādajharī, where there is Arthapushti as well as Chitrakavya. And as I told earlier, this is inspired by an example of Vikrita Shlesha Vakrokti in Kuvalayananda. That verse actually, in comparison to the verses composed by Ramashastri and Sītārāvaṇasastri, is much more simpler because of the overt suggestion that is provided. I'll just go into one example. This is a particular verse in the Prithvi Chandas. So as I told, most of the verses are in Shikharini as well as in Shardula Vikridita, but this is an exception, one of verses which is in Prithvi Chandas. And Ravana tells, Pralapa rachitodyama kimahamasmi kakutsthavat sakim swajana palano dyamadhurandaroham yatha mameva nanutasya kim janakaje mahalankata lankatasti alata ghatite vate khala vibhati vagdaruna. And what is Sita's reply to the first 3 lines? Alata ghatita ivate khala vibhati vagdaruna. Ravana tells, Pralapa rachitodyamaha kakutsthavat kim ahamasmi. Do I keep wailing like Rama? Sakim swajana palana udyama durandara aham yatha. Does he take care of his subjects like I do? And mameva tasya kim mahalankata. And he says, O Sita, is he the lord of the great Lanka as I am? For which Sita just tells, O wicked man, your speech is hurtful like a torch of fire. Alata ghatita, torch of fire. But Alata Ghatita also has a suggestion there. A la. You remove la from your words. Ta Ghatita. Add ta in that place. You remove la, and in the place of la, add ta. So there is subtraction of a letter as well as substitution substituting it or substituting that letter which has been removed with another letter. So remove la and replace it with ta in all your words, in your speech. So you see the difficulty here, the poet has to see that where he has to use the word la only in one place. If he uses in several places, this final change which Sita has told has to be incorporated in all those places where la has been employed. And that is a much more difficult. You cannot expect everywhere that la, everywhere la changing into ta giving rise to a new meaning. So the poet has to use la only in specific places so that when it is changed with the meaning can completely change. So what happens? Pralapa becomes pratapa. Swajana palana in the second line becomes swajana patana. And maha lankata becomes maha tankata. So the entire meaning is completely changed now. What is it? Instead of being, do I keep wailing like Rama? It means Pratapa rachitodhyama kimahamasmi kakutsthavat. Am I as strong as Rama? Which means I am not as strong as Rama. Does he take care of his subjects like I do? Is what initially he had said. Ravana had said, Sakim swajana palanodhyama durandaraha aham yata. Now it means swajana patanodhyama durandaraha aham yata. Does he bring about the downfall of his people like I do? In fact, Ravana brought about the downfall of all the Rakshasa clan. Next, is he filled with panic like I am? So instead of Maha Lankata, now we have Maha Tankata. Is he the Lord of Great Lanka? Now became, is he filled with panic like I am? So this is an example of a word play, Vikrita Vakrokti, which involves both substitution, which involves both deletion as well as substitution. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just two more slides. This is on Vakroktipañcāśikā. And Vakroktipañcāśikā is composed by the Kashmiri poet Ratnakara, whose much more famous work, an elaborate Mahakavya of 50 sargas is Haravijaya, untranslated Mahakavya, Bhutakara Mahakavya, we could say. And his smaller composition is this this Vakroktipañcāśikā. And as the name itself suggests, we have Pañcāśikā, 50 verses based on Vakrokti. And these verses are in the form of, the context is a conversation between Shiva and Parvati, a humorous parihasa conversation between Shiva and Parvati. And in these verses, sometimes Shiva outdoes Parvati, and in some other verses, Parvati outdoes Shiva. And it incorporates Vakrokti in every verse. And the manuscript is accessible in archive. It has been published, but I don't know whether it has been translated. But it has been published. I couldn't get a copy, just a published copy. So I had to look at this manuscript and just figure out some examples. And it has been made available by E. Gangotri. So next slide, last slide. This is just one example from Vakroktipañcāśikā. Tvam halāhalabhrittaroshi manaso murchām samalingito halam naiva bibharmina pichahalam mugdhespi kim halika satyam halika taivate samuchita saktasya govahane Vakroktyeti jito himadrisutaya smero vatadvashivah. So what does Parvati say? The conversation is begun by Parvati. She says, Tvam halahala bhrittaroshi manaso murchām samalingito. Since you bear the halahala, halahala is the name of the poison Kalakuta. So since you bear the halahala poison, I swoon when you hug me. Because of the poison, she hugs him at his neck, and the poison causes her to swoon. Obviously, halahala is the most venomous of all poisons. So she swoons, and that is what she is complaining to Shiva. I cannot even hug you, because the moment I try to hug you, I swoon because of the halahala poison in your throat. But Shiva takes it in a different sense. He says, he splits the word halahalabhrit as halabhrit and halabhrit. And what does halabhrit mean? One who bears wine. And halabhrit means one who bears plow. So Shiva tells, neither do I bear hala, nor do I bear hala. Neither do I carry wine, nor do I carry a plow. And why should I carry a plow? Na mugdhe asmi kim halika. Mugdhe means you simpleton, you simple innocent lady. Why should I carry a hala? Because am I a halika? am I a farmer to carry a plow? To which Parvati replies, yes, you are indeed a halika. Satyam halika taivate samuchita. Being a farmer indeed suits you. Why? Saktasya govahane, because you employ oxen. The word govahana means employing oxen, making use of oxen to plow. But the word govahana, go has multiple meanings in Sanskrit, and one of the meaning is ox. But the other meaning is also speech. Govahana means not just to you employ ox to plow, but it also means evading words. So you are always evading. I am asking something and you are telling something else. So yes, because you are evading words, because you are doing govahana, it is suiting you to become a halika. Indeed, you are a farmer. And in this way, Vakroktya iti jitaha Himadri Sutaya. Himadri Suta, that is Parvati, has won over, has in fact defeated Shiva through Vakrokti. And Shiva doesn't get angry. This is all, after all, a matter of parihasa between the two. Therefore, Shiva smeraha, that is, Shiva laughs or Shiva smiles at her chaturya, at the chaturya of his wife. And then such Shiva, such pleasant Shiva, let him protect us. And with these slides, I end my presentation and pray to Lord Shiva that and Parvati that just as they protect the world, let us also protect us, audience, and protect us all, audience. And I am thankful to INDICA, especially to Dr. Paturiji for involving me in this symposium and allowing me to speak a topic that is close to my heart. Thank you once more, Paturiji.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar Rajaraman-ji. That was such a wonderful collection of wonderful Samvādas involving such an intelligent conversations among characters, and the characters being our own devatas like Shiva and Parvati gives us greater pleasure. And that was a very interesting information also that in 1899 and 1919 work also has such wonderful examples. Sheldon Pollock talks about death of Sanskrit based on his assumption that after 1800 there are no creative works at all in Sanskrit. That is his thesis in the Death of Sanskrit article. And if he doesn't know that such works in such recent past also have such intense creativity and amazing creativity in them, that is not the fault of Sanskrit. It is his own fault that he has not covered the entire survey fully. And the manuscript that you were quoting from E. Gangotri, do you have any date of that?
I should just check up, sir.
Yeah, so probably it is also later work only. And wonderful works, beautiful conversations, beautiful dialogues, not just the poetics based intelligence depicted in these works. It is also profundity in terms of philosophical understanding also. There is a lot of profound philosophical understanding matching with the didactic philosophical discussions.